The relationship between the arts and democracy is a strong one that has persisted across time and place. Images, words, and songs have served to share information, create conditions for empathy to grow, to protest injustice, and to motivate our engagement in the world around us, including in the process of building a democracy. I want to share with you this image of a mural out east here in Jacksonville that depicts a pivotal historic moment from 1960. As you breathe it in, I have a couple of questions for you to ponder. What is the information that you are gathering while looking at it? In other words, what are you learning? What feelings are emerging for you? What might you be curious about? And what action might it motivate you to take? Y'all, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes the arts actually serve as a more effective spark than media headlines, marketing campaigns, or statistics. I think that this is because the arts actually engage us on multiple levels, intellectually, emotionally, and somatically. When we know something, feel it, and embody it, we are more likely to act on behalf of our own interests and those of our neighbors. The fact is, the arts provide a language to describe who we are, where we've been, what we're facing today, and where we want to go. It is something both personal and collective. We use the arts to be seen and to truly see others, to exclaim, "I am here, we are here." I mean, this feels like such an essential component of a democratic society. To be represented, to be seen is essential. Now, we know that to have a healthy democracy, that voting, running for office, and engaging with those who are in office are essential. But it's more than that, isn't it? We have to be inspired to engage. We each have to be moved to act. And we each have to do so in an informed way. And of course, there are millions of ways to get there. But for each of us, it starts with a willingness to do what we can, where we are, with what we have. And for me, what I have is art. As an artist, a curator, an educator, and an activist, art is at the center of my work and has been at the center of my entire life. I make art. I'm a printmaker. I use art as a way to teach and learn. I hold space for other artists, and I use art as a tool for getting into good trouble. This work happens in isolation in my own studio, but more importantly, I value art as a social practice and understand that its real power is when it pushes out into the public sphere. My absolute belief in this led me to create a space for and with community called Yellow House. It's a place, maybe more accurately an idea, that sits at the intersection of art, social justice, and civic engagement. It is messy. It's a mashup of exhibitions, conversations, mutual aid efforts, a little bit of education, and a lot of protest. Yellow House is small, but it's mighty, and it is becoming a hub of human connection, creativity, and community care. It's a place where the arts support democracy. But what does that actually look like? Well, just a couple of examples that I've experienced at Yellow House. It can look like refugees from Syria, Iran, Iraq, Vietnam, and Cuba, sharing their experiences of war, displacement, and immigration. Their paintings, photographs, and stories on the walls created a vessel to counter xenophobic stereotypes and to build bridges where trust could bloom. It also looks like Black mothers addressing infant mortality and the reality of systemic racism in healthcare through an exhibition that was loaded with statistics, art, and poetry. But it was much more than a passive exhibition, y'all. It was something that actually served as a backdrop for community members, healthcare providers, and policymakers to come together around the common cause of Black maternal health. It also looks like artists and activists engaging with local and state elected officials to remove Confederate monuments from our public parks and the names of Confederates from our public schools. Art actually became a primary means of communicating the true historic record to the public and those in power. It also helped to share narratives of the trauma that was continuing to be triggered as we honored these false heroes. It also looks like countering erasure. I have seen people come to grips with often buried legacies of hate and racism through encounters with art that have explored everything from the destruction of indigenous communities to the history of redlining and racial terror lynching, and the role of white supremacy in these not always United States. Art has also countered erasure by honoring those people whose shoulders we stand on, including a group of young activists from my community who were beaten with axe handles and baseball bats just so that everyone could sit at the same lunch counter. It looks like inviting artists to create posters on topics that would drive people to the polls in the 2020 elections. Issues including environmental justice, LGBTQ rights, abortion access, and public health were centered in this body of work intended to motivate people to the polls. But remember, this was also 2020. It was a time of racial reckoning. So those posters also lived literally in the streets as an illustration of our collective demands for justice after the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery. Yellow House is all of this, not because I engineered it to be so, but because a diverse collection of people and grassroots organizations have made it so. And at the foundation of Yellow House are the strengths that are innate to the arts. The fact is that arts educate because they help to illustrate and explain this very complex world. The arts build empathy by amplifying stories that open up pathways for loving our neighbors to take root. The arts also speak truth about both our past and our present. The arts cannot necessarily reverse harms that have taken place, but they can force us to bear witness and to be an impetus for repair. And the arts have always served as a tool for organizing, bringing people together to take action with one another, making our demands available for all to see. We sing as we march. So the arts build community, they can disrupt, and they give us hope. And because they are all of this, the arts are seen as a threat. When nations tilt away from democratic ideals, the arts and those who create them are early targets. When we see extremism on the rise, we see rampant censorship. And I am seeing this up close and personal. In my own community, theatrical productions that center queerness have been shut down. My state legislature is criminalizing the teaching of Black history in our schools. Books that uplift diverse stories are being pulled from the shelves, and recently a gallery removed a painting from their walls that dared to exclaim that Black lives really do matter. The arts are attacked because they are beautifully, defiantly dangerous. And at Yellow House, we are countering these attacks as we distribute banned books, tirelessly advocate for free expression. We are holding gracious space for very hard conversations. We teach truth, we register people to vote, and we critique those in power. But Yellow House, we know, is only one example of how the arts are serving as an antidote that has as its potent center the capacity to imagine a more beautiful, sustainable, and just future. Artists have an uncanny ability to help us imagine what we have yet to experience. Artists provide a portal into the future where we are fed on visions of abundance, equity, and even liberation. So even in this time, which is marked by deep division, violence, and a lot of uncertainty, creative acts are everywhere. These creative acts are tangible signs of resistance and hope. When you walk in the front door at Yellow House, you are faced with a quote on the wall. It's a quote by the brilliant writer and thinker Toni Morrison. And it reads this: "This is precisely the time when artists go to work. There is no time for despair, no place for self-pity, and no need for silence, and no room for fear." Toni Morrison's words remind us to see that artists are not on the sidelines of building a democracy, but are actually leaders in the work. And who are these artists? The fact is, it's all of us. It's me and it's you. We all have stories to tell, so let's tell them. And we each have truths to share, so let's write them, sculpt them, and act them out. And remember, we will always have losses to mourn. And let us not forget that the arts give us a place to grieve. And because I am hopeful, I believe we will be singing, painting, and dancing in celebration as we make progress toward a more perfect union. Not because it's easy, not because it's inevitable, but because we are working hard to create it.